What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel, and today I have a reaction video and sort of a hint of the future of eFootball gameplay. But first, I want to give you a little bonus. Many of you might know this, but if you don't, go into the game, go in the banner screens where those promotions or advertisements are, and go to the Bayern Championships banner, and then you'll see where it says you get 500 or 5,000. I think it's 500. It's 500 eFootball points, right? The pink ones. I believe it's eFootball points. But anyway, it's 500 eFootball points. You go, click in, and watch the championships from the game screen, right? They have a little link. You click whatever button, and then boom, it takes you to YouTube on your console. You literally have to watch for like a second. You just click that button, go into it. You can exit right away. Bam, 500 points. And there are like several players right now that are halfway decent, especially for free-to-play teams. So maybe you put points towards that, or at least you just get 500 free points for clicking a button, literally. You don't have to watch any certain amount. I literally clicked in, clicked out, got to 500 points. Now, if for some reason by the time you watch this, it expired, I apologize. But if it still hasn't expired, it will be in the banner screen. Now to the main event of this video, the gameplay at the Bayern Championships and what this tells us about the future of eFootball. So before we get into that, I need to note something that I think is really silly, but it is important to note, which is these players have to use Bayern, the Bayern players, and the Bayern manager, which is, of course, Vincent Kompany. That means we don't really get to see the actual tactics they use, when they typically play, nor do we get to see them with the best players in the game. I think this is a terrible missed opportunity, by the way, with Konami and the chance to showcase eFootball, because even if they did restrictions, right, because FC started with just open, these players could use whoever they want, so they could use the R9s, the Pelés, all these players, but as you can imagine, many pro players had the same teams. They just took literally the best 11 in the game, and there was very few differences. But once they put restrictions, you'd still get to see some amazing players, as well as some of the players that maybe more normal players would get to use since there were restrictions. So for one, it's cool seeing how these pros use some of these players that a large number of the player base has. And two, it's awesome to see how they kind of take the restrictions and build their team, which players are important to them, which positions they sort of sacrifice and take a little, lesser players in those areas. So once they added restrictions, EA Sports did on the FC side, it actually added to the value of the broadcast and made it more interesting to watch. Not to mention, it gets boring watching two players use the same exact teams, using tactics that we know they wouldn't normally use, and it's not even close to the top players, right? You have all these legends. You could still do it where they use the Bayern kits every game. That's fine. But it shouldn't be that they take away from a chance to show all these incredible legends and how good they did in making their player IDs similar to that of their real-life altar parts, right? That is a huge plus to Konami that they don't get to show off here, and that's crazy, and I think it says a lot, right? Because a lot of their decisions run that course where you see them do some brilliant things, right? Some of the brilliant details they add into the game, but then they seem to miss the mark on some obvious things that they should have done, right? Which is not very good for the players, because we know that as we go, it's just going to become commonplace that we get some awesome things added to the game or removed and so on and so forth, but we're going to have some really silly decisions as well, right? That sort of thing happens over and over and over and over, and I've even noticed it in other areas too. An example for me, adding smart assists to player versus player, but not only that, taking it a step further than just events and actually adding it in version 4.4 to every division, and even just divisions period would be silly, but at least cut it off at like division 5, from 5 to 1 or something. Nope, smart assists open for everybody, and of course, myself and many of you have seen a lot of these low-level but top-ranked players utilize it, and it's just more assistance that Konami gives these players and pretty much backs them up for being lazy and not wanting to work at this game and get good like, it would take to normally get good skill-wise and get results that way. Okay, so another thing this showed, right? And why I told you that too is because when you're watching these players, You see some great stuff, but you see some ugly football. But you at least got to note that these players aren't in their normal tactics or are using even close to teams that many of us use, right? They're using literally the Bayern roster. But with that being said, they're some of the best players in the world, and they do some brilliant stuff, like I said, but there's also some ugly football. Some of it, I believe, is related to what I said, which is the overall player base in eFootball is just not that skilled, right? But another part of it is because Konami keeps providing so much assistance that this incredible game, which could produce some amazing football, similar to this goal here. I mean, that was great buildup, right? But then you'll see some ugly stuff too. You'll see in a little bit some of the goalie mistakes because Manuel Neuer's attacking goalkeeper, and you see some of the nonsense that I've always talked about. The goalkeepers will do some brilliant things, but then they do some ridiculous things like literally that haven't been an issue in other football games for years. But for some reason in eFootball, they'll hit some amazing animations, and then they'll do just some silly nonsense that shouldn't even be in the game. So in summary, we essentially just have to expect some really good stuff from Konami and then some really disappointing things. That's just the bottom line. However, at the core, the game is excellent. And with these top level players, you can see that. The way they manipulate a lot of these players, a lot of the different passing sequences they do more often than many players, it's excellent, right? And it shows you that if you work at this game, this is what's possible. Now, the good side too, as a player that's aspiring to get as high as I can, right? As a competitor, I want to keep improving, and there's no ceiling to that, right? I want to keep moving up until I can't anymore, right? And so watching some of these top players, you can see they make a lot of the same mistakes the average top level player makes. By average, I mean not players that play in these competitions or anything, just top ranked division players, which, as you've seen in my streams and my videos, a lot of the top ranked players I come across are pretty low level. They use smart assist, they use, some of the rattiest nonsense. They really don't even try to play football. They take every assistance they can get. And I think that there's a second part of when I'm talking about the losers that just refuse to try to work at this game and get better. And I think that second part is the players that look at it as if they're spoiled by Konami, and that's why they're lazy, right? So hear me out. Many of these pros even, right, or these top level players that get in these tournaments, you can see some of these, what I call bad habits, from all the assistance that Konami provides. So when they get into these tournaments and they have to play without certain things that they may play in divisions and stuff, it shows. Now, I can't prove that that's why many of these mistakes that you see in the gameplay behind me happen. However, based on the vast majority of top-ranked players that I play and the tactics that they normally use, right, and then the assistance that they can get not in these tournaments, right, not using Bayern Munich and company, whose proficiency is high in the possession playstyle, not quick counter, not long ball counter. So you can imagine how many of these players haven't even touched possession or only did when they knew they had to use Bayern, right? Whereas when they're climbing divisions, they're probably using one of the counter play styles. And so that's why you see some of the mistakes that you see. That's what we can take from this as well, which is that as true football players, assuming all of you listening are truly trying to play eFootball for the best football that you can play, not just for the meta nonsense, the through ball crap that I talk about, or all of the assistance that eFootball gives to try to give players shortcuts so they don't have to learn and play the game the right way, play the game for what you can play it like, right? Which is, to me, a travesty. To have such a good game, which again, I talk about why it took me so long to discover that this was a good game. You don't ever see some of the amazing things that you could see. If every player was playing the way this game could be played, you would have so many great highlights. They would be spread all over the place, and FC wouldn't have a chance. That arcadey ping, 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 ping nonsense that resembles good football at times, but it's just too, like I said, arcadey. And then UFL, it's not even worth bringing up with all the exploits and stuff. So you would just see a ton of great football highlights from eFootball. Instead, you have so much nonsense with the quick counter, rush around on defense, play that pencil-thin formation that you basically try to have your opponent dribble or pass into you, and then spam through balls the whole time. So all you do is see all these players, these great legends that they did a great job bringing into the game resembling their real life, play styles, and all they're doing is running in a straight line after through balls over and over and over. And a lot of the gimmicks and nonsense too, right? Like the fact that players will say all you have to do is, do X amount of fake shots or a stunning shot, fake shot, and the defense will glitch out and you can score, or you have to learn the corner glitches. And it's just a lot of shortcuts, like I said, that ruin the game. And once you get past all that, there's some amazing stuff. For instance, you can do a lot of set plays off of set pieces, both corners and free kicks, that don't involve any type of glitches, that literally take practice, just like scoring a direct free kick takes practice, right? And then that satisfaction that you get when you pull these things off, it literally rivals real life success. Real life meaning real football. When you're training and you finally understand a tactic or learn a new move or score a goal from a certain, pattern, passing pattern, or whatever the case may be. If you play football, you know what I'm saying. And all these shortcuts that people take, it really takes away from the point of playing and the beauty of eFootball as a whole. So my goal is to keep, as I've said many times, to keep going that route of showing the best that this game can produce. However, based on seeing these championships, seeing how these players, are utilizing the possession play style with Vincent Company, it is obvious to me that we are going to have a long road ahead with these counter players, because you better believe these players are going to leave this event, right, and they're going to go right back to their counter setups, to their through ball spamming nonsense, because that's what helps them climb. It is going to take a lot of players, a lot of videos, spreading the word, trying to grow this channel, trying to help others spread the word, maybe with bigger channels or smaller channels that are trying to get bigger, the same as me. Whatever the case, a lot of posts underneath the social media with Konami, begging them to stop adding assistants, to nerf all the assistants they have, maybe even to nerf quick counter or take it out. I know that lately quick counter has been secondary to long ball counter, right? I personally use long ball counter because of the way the game's set up, right? I can still play good football out of it, but many players aren't going to try to play good football out of it. And the reason why long ball counter is surpassing quick counter is because version 4.4 essentially buffed passing and made it a lot more important. Therefore, players will load up their midfield with good passers and then, dun dun dun, spam through balls. So it's a double-edged sword on the journey, if you will, or challenge to spread great football and eFootball, because on one side, with better passing, also with some nerfed AI assistance on the defense side, you can get a lot more of those beautiful passing sequences that really shine in eFootball. However, you also have the ratty players that see a use in the passing buff too, to just further their agenda of spamming these through balls and not really playing football at all. The only difference is in long ball and the pressure defense, they just play a super narrow formation and try to get you, like I said earlier, to dribble or pass into them. And now in long ball counter, because the defense drops back and gets players behind the ball, you're going to see a lot more players loading up the backfield, just getting you to once again dribble into their AI or one of their players, or pass into one of their players so they can then spam through balls again. So pretty much the same. The only thing that changes is that now we, as players that want to play good football, have a better chance at beating these players. Because before, as in before version 4.4, it was very difficult to pass through these teams. It was very difficult to get anything going, especially with how heavy the AI assistance was defensively. So it absolutely needed nerfing, and it needs more nerfing. But because the passing is so much smoother and you can get passes off faster, now that pressure defense for those teams who just have to play quick counter, they probably are lost anywhere else. You do have a better chance at passing around them and slicing them up like Swiss cheese, which is one of my favorite things to do. Those teams with the most skilled rats, if you will, if you even want to call it a skill, they'll still get the best of you sometimes with quick counter. It's not like the rat meta is now impossible to use or even nerfed to the point where they have a disadvantage, right? There's still some very powerful non-football playing rats out there that are utilizing quick counter. But the only difference is there's a lot more rats out there that are using long ball counter as well. So with all of that being said, I was really pleased with how these championships went because watching the gameplay from the outside and watching high-level players, even if they weren't the sharpest with possession, you see here a lot of goals like this. There's a lot of beautiful stuff. Now, you got to remember, I'm watching from the lens of a player that is expecting a lot out of top players in the world. I know these aren't the best of the best because this was literally a tournament to qualify to go to the World Championships, right, and represent Bayern Munich. However, it still means that these are some of the best players out there. Point blank. It's not like they're low level by any means. And so obviously I'm not going to compare them to myself, who is literally an FC/UFL convert that's brand new in my journey. So I'm judging them from the lens of professional level players, which means when they did some nonsense or made mistakes, of course I'm going to note it. But do not get it twisted. They did some awesome things on both sides of the ball, and it was great to see because it shows that we have something to strive for and that we too, if we keep working at the game, can get to some level of success playing good football. That's one of the other good things about having it be Bayern Munich playing a play style like possession, even though these players clearly weren't as familiar, right? Some more than others, but it was just very clear. If you watch this in detail, you can tell based on high-level players, they just were playing with players and with teams that they weren't used to playing with as much as, God knows what their normal teams and normal tactics look like. So in summary, we should all be very excited for what Konami is going to bring us in the future. We just have to be prepared that they are going to disappoint us at times, and many times it's going to be in ways that we feel like, the solution was simple or they missed an easy win with some of their decisions. That's just Konami. That's just eFootball. Now, on the other side of it, if you are on a journey to play great football and not take all these shortcuts, not take all the assistance, you are going to have a lot of frustrating moments as well because these players simply are spoiled by all of the shortcuts, all of the assistance. So they're not just going to give it up. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort to beat these players, much less getting any of them to convert themselves over to actually working at playing the game the right way. I guarantee you, though, as more players play this game how it could be played, not how many players have taken it with the meta and then Konami catering to them, and the true football players or pure football players or whatever you want to call it start whooping these shortcut taking losers, I guarantee you that is what will take, because these low-level players, they don't want to lose. They will just quit the game. The main reason they're doing all this is to get wins. For whatever reason, they just want to win, even if it means not playing football. So the minute they start losing, they're gone. The ones who stay will say, hey, I'm going to try to work at playing good football, so I'm done with the shortcuts. Not to mention, if Konami notices a shift in what the player base wants, you better believe they'll start taking away all of this assistance. They'll stop adding more of it, such as smart assists, things like this, because they just want players to spend money. Whoever is leading the pack, that's who's going to get, catered to, essentially. So right now, it's the shortcut taking, non-football playing losers, which I honestly say not as an insult, just as a truth. If you take shortcuts, you're not willing to put in the work to get better, you're a loser. You're definitely not a winner. But if that shifts, like I said, you better believe we, as players who want to see this game for the great football that can be played, will prevail, and Konami will start catering to us. So it's not going to be easy by any means. However, it's absolutely worth fighting for, if you will, because we all put time into playing this game because we love football. We want to play football. None of us say, hey, let's go play this football simulator to take shortcuts, to find glitches, to find exploits, just so we can win. Yes, we are competitors, but no different than many of us who played football in real life. We don't want to cheat to win. We want to put in the effort to get better at the game and then compete, and may the best man win. So, with that being said, let's get to grinding. Let's keep on fighting the good fight. Remember to always have fun, and I will see you on the next one. Peace out.